Luke, I thought of you. I thought of reporters who cover that building who have been bringing us sort of the humanity of what went on that day. And there is nothing like hearing from these officers whose politics are indecipherable from any one side, but whose victimization at the hands of people who were sent by Donald Trump to do exactly what they did is undeniable after today's hearings. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I was in the hearing room today. I would say it was gut-wrenching. It was heartbreaking. The testimony was visceral, as you just played. I don't know how anybody can watch it and think that this was a tourist visit or a normal day at the Capitol, as has been said. I know personally, I thought it was hard to watch. When you hear stories about an officer being crushed in the door, when you hear about an officer who they attempted to gouge out his eye, when you hear racist slurs being thrown about, it's hard not to watch that and feel emotional and feel it very viscerally. And I think you saw the committee reacting that way. You saw officers crying as the never before seen video was played of the attack. You saw members of Congress crying. I saw at one point one of the officers reached over to put his arm around another officer to comfort him. And, you know, to me, it sort of cut through this sort of partisan back and forth we've been seeing about this issue for a while now, the talking points on either side. And it got right down to the heart of the matter, which is what actually happened that day, what are the facts, what are the details, and what really happened. And I think we heard pretty damning testimony today about what really happened.
I think that, Yamiche, what was clearly important to the members of the Select Committee was laying down the pillars and the foundations of the facts of the insurrection. Who did it? Why were they there? Why did they say they were there? Why did they say they did it? Let me play some of the testimony from the officers about their interactions with the mob.
It was a prolonged and desperate struggle. The rioters attempted to breach the Capitol were shouting, "Trump, send us. Pick the right side. We want Trump." All of them were telling us, "Trump, send us."
One man tried to start a chant of 4 more years. Another shouted, "Do not attack us. We're not Black Lives Matter," as if political affiliation is how we determine when to use force. A man in a QAnon hoodie exclaims, "This is the time to choose which side of history to be on." A man whose shirt read, "God, guns, and Trump" stood behind him, silently holding a Trump flag.
They were dressed in, clothing adorned with political slogans, "Make America Great Again," Donald Trump 2020, things of that nature. They were wearing military-style clothing, Kevlar vests, Kevlar helmets. Many of them had gas masks, and quite a few had shields, which they had taken away from law enforcement officers. And they were using them to beat us at the front line.
And Yamiche, I think it's important to always remember that everything we saw today was something that Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy have bet the farm on blocking. They bet all of their political fortunes in the midterms and the next presidential on making sure we never saw any of this. We never heard the law enforcement officials testify as to who attacked them, who mutilated them, who tased them, who sprayed them with bear spray.
You know, Nicole, this is possibly one of the most important, if not the most important hearing I've ever covered in my career. To hear these officers talk about defending the U.S. Capitol, defending democracy against racist, against white supremacists against people who knew exactly who sent them there, former President Trump. What's sticking with me is Officer Harry Dunn, who said very clearly, if a hitman kills somebody, not only does he go to jail, but that the person who hires him, he goes to jail too. And he told Congress, I want you to get to the bottom of that. And the bottom of that is, what did the former president know? Who knew what when? What were these people told before, during, and after this attack? This has become a sort of political football, as you alluded to, with Republicans saying one thing and Democrats saying another. But here are these officers, these heroes, telling us this is what American democracy means to us. It means that we put our lives on the line, that we defended ourselves against this crazy crowd who was repeating the things that only former President Trump had told them, someone who told them to go to that Capitol. I think it's so easy to forget when we're talking about lawmakers calling this a tourist visit and saying that these were loving people, that this was so much worse than what we can all remember, that we kind of know what happened on January 6th. But when you talk to these officers and you hear these officers, there's a new understanding every single day of what happened on January 6th, because it was an insurrection. It was the worst thing that has ever happened to the U.S. Capitol in my lifetime, in your lifetime, and all of our lifetimes. And I think that this testimony really underscores the work of this committee and what they have to do, which is find out what the hell happened, excuse my language, and figure out who's responsible.
I think we can suspend any language rules today. One of the some of the testimony from Officer Fanone was I think so clear because he didn't mince his words. It was that kind of day. Liz Cheney, Matt Dowd, not mincing her words. And today's a day when Democrats don't need to call Republicans a disgrace because Liz Cheney did it for them. Watch.
Look, almost every member of the Republican conference understood in days immediately after January 6th what had actually happened, and many of them said so publicly. And the fact that so many members of our leadership and others, the fact that they've gone from recognizing what happened on the 6th to protesting in front of the Justice Department on behalf of those who were part of the insurrection is something that I can't explain. I think it's a disgrace, and I know that this committee will be focused on getting to the truth of what happened in a non-political, nonpartisan way.
Matt Dowd, you've said it before, Liz Cheney not a functioning part of this iteration of the Republican Party. She made that separation abundantly clear today.
Well, I think that's very clear. What's also clear is that since Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger are being attacked by almost every other Republican in the caucus, including the leadership of it, it shows you that they're not interested in truth. If you speak truth as a Republican, whatever the issue is, especially as related to this, what happened on this insurrection attack by the terrorists, whether it's on health or whatever it happens to be, you don't fit in the Republican caucus. And I'm glad, I was really happy to see Liz Cheney. I disagree with Liz Cheney on a number of issues, but there's no doubting she is a very principled conservative in this. I think one thing out of this hearing today, and hopefully in the days going forward, that I hope happens is that the date of January 6th is burned into our psyche, just like 9/11 has been burned into our psyche as a date, and just like December 7th, 1941 is burned into our psyche. This is a date that will live in infamy, to quote FDR. And I think it's important to go through this. And so it's burned in this. This is not just one day, bad things happened on one day. This is an attack on our democracy, instigated by the President of the United States, and now enabled by one of the major legacy parties of the country. An attack on our democracy, physical terrorist attack on our democracy, is now being enabled by one of the major two political parties. So this date, January 6th, needs to be indelible in our minds, and we shouldn't forget it. And the Democrats, I hope, will run on this in 2022, but mostly I hope we get to the truth. But I hope the American public burns this in their heart and soul about what happened.